How are you?
I am so excited. I am so excited.
Listen, you
Can I just say
are so
live
excited.
from New York? Can I say that live from New York?
Absolutely. Live from New York City. I'm live from Atlanta. You're live from New York City. But
That's
you've been
right.
like on
Yeah.
a world. You've been on a world tour. You've been all over the place. But
Yeah.
before we get into that, can you introduce yourself to those who may not know? Reintroduce yourself to those who know.
Sure. My name is Amilya Antonetti. I am your behaviorist. I have had about 53,000 employees across 9 different companies, and I specialize in people problems. And that's people problems, whether that's in your relationship, whether that's with your children, whether that's your first hire, your team building, or for corporate enterprises to put their people plan next to their tactical plan. So I do all things people.
All things people, and you
Yeah.
do it extremely well, Amelia. I met you on Clubhouse
Yes.
about a year ago.
Yeah.
And you were helping people then,
Mhm.
and you are helping people now. But what I found most interesting was your background, right? Your background. A lot of people may know you from Steve Harvey, right?
Yeah.
Working with Steve Harvey. And you've done a whole lot of other special things in the world of entertainment. But you
Yeah.
said behaviorist.
Yeah.
Behaviorist.
Mhm.
Let's talk about what that is in the work that you do. What is behaviorist?
Got it. Well, so I have to remind people, I am not a therapist. So if you're looking to lay on a couch and get some squishy hugs, I'm not the girl for you. But if you're looking to understand how do you move from where you are to where you want to be, that is a behaviorist. We move very quickly and we give you the root of what you're actually resisting against, right? We identify for you, we act like a mirror to identify the behavior that is in the way of what it is that you say that you want or you desire. And so we can do that in a team environment. We can do that if you're trying to bring in and start building a team, like your first couple of new hires. We do it for entrepreneurs. We do it right now with a lot of families that are trying to groom their children in the life skills that they need as they go into high school and go into college. And so because we removed the life of passages, right, our life skills from our communities and from our homes, we have a lot of people who just don't know what to do next, right? They live life by default, and working with a behaviorist just allows you to move a lot faster. So I literally specialize in the behavior, the thoughts, the actions, and the results of any type of business, anything to do with wealth generation. And I've worked with 700 athletes, musicians, and entertainers to do exactly the same thing that I now do for just everybody.
What do you find the biggest obstacle to be as it relates to behavior patterns in the workplace?
I think the thing that really trips people up is what's on your side and what's on somebody else's side, and then what's the proper tool, right? So most people are literally living life by default. They just show up in their day, they go about their routine, and they don't spend any time really thinking about, is how you're showing up working towards what you have defined is your ultimate outcome, right? Is it working toward your desired lifestyle? And most of the time, people can't do their own brain surgery, right? They can't see themselves to see, how am I participating in the problem? And so the first thing that happens, so like if you and I are working on something or we're interacting or having lunch together, I have to be able to have the life skill to say what you're talking about, even though it may be a problem or something that you're discussing, that's on your side. And how I lean into that conversation and how I participate, I have to make sure, am I bringing my stuff, my unfinished work into the conversation and influencing you towards your goal or away from your goal? So a lot of people have had these conversations where they're really excited about something and they go to share it with somebody else and they're like, oh, that'll never happen. Like they just like throw up all over you. And then you leave the conversation worse than you entered it.
When you started.
And so what happened is the person that you were talking to didn't have the life skills to be able to say, hey, listen, are you looking for feedback as you're sharing that with me? Are you looking for me to be a cheerleader? You want me to kind of, am I your motivation here on it? To be able to understand, how am I supposed to listen so that I can give you what it is that you're looking for? Those are all behavior things. And same thing when you start to get into, conflict and crisis, right? I spent 35 years in conflict and crisis. which is all people problems. That's where I use my behavior skills to go in and unwind for somebody what is really happening.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work that I do when it's, a couple or a team or organization is to help them understand that what you think is happening is never what is happening. To show the people that are participating in the activity or that work what is really happening for each individual. And when a company can lean in and develop their people to their highest and best, right? So the company takes that initiative to put people first and what people want, then everything in the company flourishes.
Because you said it's never what we think, right? It's always at a surface level, and you have to always go so much deeper, right?
And most people have surface relationships, right?
Yes.
There are surface relationships. You talk about the weather, you talk about the kids, you talk about what you do today, right? And so we get into this routine of having surface conversations. And then there's a part of us that's hungry, right? There's a part of us that's like, I need more. Like there's like this is like Groundhog Day for me, because as humans, we are designed to constantly be learning, be curious, and to be developing. And so when we start that habit of just living every day, the same day over and over again, we're not designed that way. That's what robots are for, right? We're humans. And so we're always supposed to be moving to our highest and best self. The problem is that we removed life skills from part of our learning process. So we're guessing and we don't understand why we feel the way we feel. And so I go in and I try to help people understand how they are feeling, first identify the feeling, and then connect it to the root cause. What really is happening is not on the surface. Well, you didn't pick up your shoes and that's why I'm really upset. Well, no, it actually has nothing to do with the shoes at all. What's really happening is underneath that, which may be something like I feel not respected, or it may be I feel like I'm being used, or I feel like an indentured servant, right? There's something as underneath the tactics of you just not picking up your shoes. Right. And so I'm doing that in conversations all the time to show people how they're in their way of growing in happiness, growing in joy, growing in wealth, right? Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you don't know how to do effective time, right? Time blocking and time management, that tells me you also have a skill that is lacking in wealth development, right? Because the way you come to a process and a conclusion follows all the way around all those areas of your life.
How did you get into this work? Because it is fabulous, life-changing work. Like, what was the catalyst for you?
They always say that your greatest strength comes from your greatest weakness, right? And so I was a young person in high school. I was emancipated at 15, and I needed to figure out how to provide a roof over my brother and myself house. Like how do I provide for our living? And so I leaned in by accident into entrepreneurship. And in being an entrepreneur, and again, when I was an entrepreneur, there was no such word. I never even heard the word entrepreneur until I was in my 20s, right? I was starting a business, and in that business, I had to really quickly realize that the only way I was going to attract really good people who were very talented, right? SMEs, subject matter experts, over medium-sized or big, huge companies was if I was doing something different in my company than everybody else. And so I started to get really, really curious about what motivates people. And so when I started to understand that to motive, the word move, the first part of it is to take action, and action, right, is what is the motive to take action. So that's what motivation really means. What is it that causes me to want to take action? And I took that and really started to do a deep study on what causes people to move from where they are to where they want to be. What causes them to move through fear or move through the things that normally hold people behind. And so in my company, I was a Winnie the Pooh person. I loved Winnie the Pooh. And so I put honey pots in my company, and I was like, when you're not here, what are you doing? And so people were like, I'm washing cars and I'm cleaning the house and I'm mowing lawns and I'm doing dry cleaning. And so what I started to do was every week I would take something out of the honey pot, and as the company, I would solve that problem. And what I found was that people were coming not to work for me because of the company and my mission, even though I love what we were doing. They were coming because of the environment. They were coming from the fact that I was proactively working to improve their life every single day with the things that I do easily that they struggled with. And then from that, I created systems, right? Duplicatable systems and processes so that people can move into the module and they could develop the area that had interest to them. And I've been in the people business ever since.
Oh, you're traveling the country right now. The whole notion of living a genius life doesn't happen by accident.
It
Like
does not.
the genius life. I took a genius assessment in New York last summer. With you doing the Grow for God. No, that was not Grow for God. That was a meetup we did.
One of the Breakfast of Champions meetups.
Breakfast of Champions meetup in New York, and we were in Queens. And you came through. I was able to come out to your house and hang out, and I
brought 300 of my closest friends out to the house.
It was amazing, right? And you know how to throw parties, my friend.
Thank you.
Listen, it was hilarious. I was looking at some video because before I was hanging out with the Blind Master.
I love him.
The Blind Master, right?
Oh.
And when I was leaving the house, I was like, LA, you would not believe this vehicle that's in the driveway. He was like, wait a minute. Tell me about the vehicle. Tell me a little bit, and I'm going to describe it. And we literally took video with L.A. Williams, the Blind Master, talking about your vehicle.
Oh my gosh, I have to see that video. That video. Yeah, that's the police Jeep. Yeah, that goes over into a lot of parades. Again, a lot of toys.
One of my dream vehicles. I took a picture. I was like, LA, I need this truck in my life. Like this Jeep is everything. But really, I took the Genius Key. Is it a survey? Would you call it a survey?
So in designing Genius, we have a lot of people tools, right? Just literally, we have 1,008 games that helps people understand what is really happening, right? So as a behaviorist, my greatest service to anybody is to show them what is happening, really to be a mirror, and then to have you choose, is it working for you? And if it's not working, what do you immediately do, right, to correct so that you can get into alignment, or we call the flow state, right? And so that's what I realized was that as people, spend 10 years in their career, they, some people get married and start to have children, they hit this level of complacency, right? There's not anything wrong, but yet there's unfulfillment. Right? Like people are like, oh my God, is this it? Yeah, I get that all the time. Is this it?
Yeah.
And to get past that, right? So what happens is your natural abilities will take you as far as you can go, and then you're going to flatline. And so something must change in order for life to be different. You cannot hold on to the same thinking and the same beliefs, think you're going to change your life. If you want to change your life, you have to change your thinking, your mindset. And we hear people say that. But what I found was people did not know how to identify what part of my thinking is holding me back from what I want. And so designing Genius, that's what we do, is we're committed to be able to help you identify based on you what is or isn't working. And then if it's not working, to immediately go into a behavioral tool to fix it. And that's what I do on Fridays at 9 a.m. I jump in, right, the clubhouse for an hour. People come to stage and they're like, here's my problem. And I'm like, here is how I would approach it. And we get the same thing every week. Oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. Oh my gosh.
It's true. We never thought about it that way. Like I'm there most Fridays. And it's true. It's like every Friday.
And so I'm trying to introduce to people, right? And there's nothing wrong with therapy. I think everybody should have a therapist, but behavioral tools move faster, right? And being an entrepreneur, I want it yesterday. And so I needed to find ways to play games with myself, with my partner, with my team, with my kids, right? To grow my business. The only way you can grow and scale is if your tactical plan has a human people plan. So if you have a business plan, but you don't have a people plan, you're guessing. You're guessing because people need to develop into and through the tactical planning. And so that's what I spend my time. That's what I've been doing. I've been out on the road and I've been joining people for team meetings to show them live and in person how to run a team meeting based on people skills, right? To see the difference between running a meeting based on an agenda and running a meeting based on people's needs, right? To be able to go in, I've done a ton of masterminds and I've added on the people section, right? So as people get together, they do their offsite, they're thinking about, Q4 next year. That's tactical planning. And my question is, where is the people planning? What plan is going to allow these people to execute on what you want them to do, especially after COVID, right? We've all changed who we are. We've changed what is valuable to us. And so if you don't have a people plan, then you don't have people. And that's why almost every single employer is trying to attract and hire people, but they're not tapping into the language of today's remote worker. They're not. That's my job, is to go out and say, let me help you understand who your people are.
Yeah.
And so, I love it. And I love it.
No, you have to love it, right? I mean,
I love it. I love it.
I majored in communications. I majored in sociology. And
then you get it.
It's the behavior piece and why we do what we do that I was so intrigued by. But when I met you and learned what you were about and then listened to you speak, it's like, what? Because it's so I'm going to say common sense, but not, because we're so surface.
Yes.
Right? It's like, why didn't we think of that? It's because we don't think of that.
And most people really don't have the deep, meaningful relationships that they want to have, right? I took a whole group of women who all, there's about 100 of them that basically were like, I don't have very good female relationships. And I'm like, that's because you weren't taught how to, right? Yeah. You just think it's going to happen. Right. And so I took a group of men, I took a group of women, and I actually taught them how to have deep and meaningful relationships. Yeah. I go into a lot of couples, right, who have a relationship that is stale. It's their roommates, right? And I'm like, okay, well, why would you want to spend the next 20, 30 years of your life with a roommate, right? You have one person that you have a partnership with. So I go in to help them learn the tools that they need to literally expedite, elevate a life of abundance. But you can't do that alone, right? Both people have to agree, we want more. And there's nothing wrong with more.
Amilya Antonetti is my guest today, ladies and gentlemen. She is amazing. Live out of New York City. I'm coming to you live out of Atlanta. This is Leadership on Demand. She is the epitome of leadership. She has thousands of employees, have had thousands of employees. She's had multiple businesses. She started and sold. And I mean, you're just still at it. And it's all about helping people to get unstuck in a major way. Like, Amilya, let's talk about Designing Genius.
Yep.
The tool itself, why you developed the tool, and what people can get out of it, and why they need to order it.
Well, what I first found out, as we started to come back from the universal reset, right? Like COVID affected everybody, right? Not everybody the same, but everybody was impacted in some way through COVID. And what I was finding as I was going out to speaking events, going back with team leaders, trying to figure out how they're going to rebuild their company, whether their company was going to be a hybrid or in person, was that there wasn't a tool that allowed somebody to go through with the privacy of themselves, to go through a tool to say, who am I? What is part of my identity? What do I really want? What are what I call rules of the games, the should and should nots, so that you can explain to the people that's within your inner circle what has importance and meaning to you, what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and why. And so I wanted somebody to be able to very quickly go through a course that gave them the snapshot of who they were. And that if they looked at the snapshot and there was something there that wasn't working for them, that there would be an immediate tool, we call it a toolbox, that they could go into to start working on correcting the thing that they chose they wanted to change. And then for other people to start really understanding what is happening in these scenarios where the outcome is not what you thought it was going to be, to really harness the skills so that you have more control over the outcome. And so those are the things. So I was like, okay, let me put together a book, Designing Genius, and it walks you through all of the different aspects of your identity, what has meaning, what doesn't have meaning, and kind of how to craft it. And then the course that allows you then to not understand who you are, but to give the tools to the people around you so they're pushing the energy and the ball in the same direction, right? And to understand that these interactions where I'm sharing with you something about me and the tool that I'm putting in place is what creates the depth and the meaning in a relationship. And that's the first thing that I hear is that people go, my entire life has elevated because now I feel like I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm connected, I belong, I'm getting more of the things that I want. And it's not because I did something. It is about they put in just the small amount of time to define for themselves what really has meaning. And so what I like to say to somebody is if you don't know what you want, how could I ever give it to you? How can I give you something that you haven't defined? And if you keep changing your mind, you are participating in absent behavior, right? I'm only going to try so many times. And if you're like a moving target, I'm like, I just can't ever make you happy, right? And so you have to get that clarity first for yourself and then share that with the people that are in your inner circle. And it changes the game on everything because there's no more guessing. There's no more guessing. I know exactly what it is, right? So like for me, I'm a coffee lover. I love coffee. Coffee makes me happy. I love the way it smells. I love everything about coffee. And so on one of my little tools, I have this perfect cup of coffee. Like I know it the minute I smell it. And so now people can actually deliver me a perfect cup of coffee, which I feel so connected and so understood and so cared for because that's something that has meaning to me. Now, somebody else, you could send them a cup of coffee and it doesn't mean anything. But to me, it has an importance of being seen, heard, and cared for, right? One of the other gals on our team, it's Twizzlers, right? So people like to send her Twizzlers because it has meaning to her. And so when you don't know this, right? When you don't know the things that make an individual who they are, they feel unseen. And I've had people that were married for 20 some odd years and they're like, there's nothing I'm going to learn about my spouse that I don't already know. We've lived, I'm like, and they go through this and they're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And that's what I'm trying to do. Take a moment to really understand who you are and use the tools to communicate it to the people around you because most people want to love on you. Most people want to connect. They just don't know how. They don't know how.
Communication is key. Why is it so difficult for us to openly communicate? Specifically,
Fear.
like
Fear.
when but you've lived and slept with this person for 10 and 20 years. Like what do we fear?
But most people's biggest fear is to truly be seen, right? And as you move into an intimate relationship, right? In that relationship, there is an idea of who you are, Most people fall in love with the idea of who somebody is, and that person is trying the best that they can to not be revealed for who they really are.
To live up to the idea.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And that's what I say about myself. People see this and they see this part of my personality. They're like, oh my God, I love her. And I'm like, well, you have the idea of who Amilya is. You don't really know who Amilya is. And so when I tell people, no, I'm actually an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
Right. I have to stand up for my own truth, my own authenticity, so that people don't fall in love with something that isn't real. If you think I'm an extrovert, that's not real. I've learned extroverted behaviors in order to do my job on TV and speaking and stuff like that. But in my natural, happiest state, I'm really a homebody, right? I like to be home. I like to be in my environment. I really like very quiet, simple things in nature. I'm an introvert. And so I try to explain to people, this is one of the big rooms that I did on Clubhouse that people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. So I define to people what an introvert and extrovert really means, right? So if you go into a social setting and you feel filled up, you feel great, you come home from being at a concert or being at a big party and you're like, I am like on endorphin rush, you're an extrovert. If you go to the exact same party, the exact same concert, you had the exact amount of fun, but you come home and you're drained, you're an introvert, right? It doesn't mean that we don't enjoy social things. It means that I need recovery time after a big social engagement, right? I'm an introvert, right? And so people think that if you're outspoken and if you're a leader, they lump you into this category saying you're an extrovert. I'm like, that's not true. Until you understand how people recover, you don't know if they're an introvert or an extrovert.
Designing Genius is the book. DesigningGenius.com is the website. Visit the website, my friends. Pick up the book. Amilya, what would you say your greatest accomplishment has been? What's your greatest accomplishment?
I think my greatest accomplishment is that every relationship that I've had, even if the relationship ended, we still have mutual respect and a kindred spirit for each other. Like, I really think the fact that I have this ability to transform a relationship, say from an intimate partner to a friendship, or a friendship to a colleague, or a colleague to a friendship, that I have the ability to keep people in my life for a very long period of time because I honor the fundamental of the relationship. Now, don't get that confused. Do not think that that means that I don't have heartache. I absolutely have heartache, right? I feel the same pain that you do when a relationship ends. But having the ability to harness the relationship, to keep the things that are valuable from the relationship and let go the things that aren't working. So many people end a relationship and they throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a reason why you had the relationship with the person. So being able to identify what is the value and keeping that value as you transform the relationship into something else, I think is my greatest gift.
That is, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. You're pretty self-aware.
I try to be.
You have above average awareness. I'll tell you something. I thought self-awareness, like no joke. I thought self-awareness was something that we all had. I thought self-awareness was like truly just something that we all possessed. Probably until maybe like less than a decade ago, when it dawned on me, like, some people do things, say things, and they are just totally unaware. And so, opportunity for us. When you think of legacy, and you're going to have such a magnificent one.
I hope so.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I really hope that I heal unintended pain. I'm hoping that my time here on earth, that what I do more than anything else is provide the tools for people that are creating pain in other people and not realizing it, right? I think that most of the pain we suffer from in our families, in our communities, in our school, the pain wasn't intended, but it doesn't mean I don't feel the pain.
Absolutely.
And so if I can correct that, if I can give people the tools to understand how what they think and what they do dramatically impacts other people, to make that connection, I think that that would be my greatest legacy, because I've already done my headstone, and my headstone doesn't say I was an amazing wife or incredible mother. And even though those things are important, right? My headstone says she made a difference. And so it's important for me, the person that I am, that I make a difference in how much pain we are in as a world, and help people to stop repeating that process. I think that's what tore our communities apart. Our communities are torn apart not because we don't want to be a member of our communities. We've had so much tossing over the fence of it's their problem, it's their problem. We've created this story that it's somebody else's fault for whatever it is that we're feeling. And the reality is, you're a contributor. No matter what you're doing, you are contributing. I just was at a college, and I was talking to, college age kids, 20 somethings, and they were talking about conflict and argument. And I was like, you cannot have an argument unless you participate.
Facts.
It's impossible. Right. And so what I was doing for them is I was mirroring the behavior. So they were trying to get me into an argument, and I was giving them the response that is non-argumentative. It's neutral. So when you can show up in that power of neutrality, you can never be in an argument unless I choose to participate in it. And so those are just skills, life skills, right, that need to be taught so that we're not creating pain. The two people that are arguing, they're not both going, oh, I really want to hurt this person, right? They're defending their position. And so understanding that when you start to feel that energy wall up inside of you, right? You start to feel it, right? And you have to say to yourself, do I want to defend my position right now? Or do I want to understand what's happening?
Yeah.
And that's a choice. That's a choice. Most people believe that they have to defend their position because that position is attached, rooted in their self-worth. But if you're not rooted in your self-worth, if you're okay, right? I'm very happy to be wrong because I see it as an opportunity, a curiosity for me to learn and grow. So if I say the sky is green and you say the sky is blue, I can now lean in to defend, or I can go, tell me, how do you see it that way? Help me understand what you're seeing, because I'm missing it. I still see green. Walk me through so I can be with you. I want to be with you. And those are just skills.
Wow. Amelia, like, so many things are going through my head, but I'm going to pivot back to one thing that you shared on Clubhouse that I thought was, like, again, another moment. You talked about men in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and how men need relationships because most men do not have friends.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, and like how you even came to that understanding about the reality that
Well, yeah.
most men
Don't.
don't have good friendships or relationships? It's true.
Yeah. So in our conditioning, right? So our conditioning as a society, it is acceptable and it is expected that women have best friends. It starts in elementary school. And little boys are not really conditioned to have a best friend. They have a group, they play a sport,
Mm-hmm.
they do something at recess, but we don't lean in to say, who's your best friend? Right. And so we condition the mindset of men in team competitive mentality. Again, nothing wrong with competitive. There's nothing wrong with team. There's nothing of that. But what happens is it leaves men lonely. And where they find their best friend is in the intimate relationship. That intimate relationship becomes their best friend.
Yes.
So when
Absolutely.
that relationship ends, it's devastating. And so a lot of the reaction, right, is to not, right, get that close again. They defend their heart and they're like, I'm not going to do that again. And they rob themselves from where they've notoriously gone to have a best friend. And so there was a survey, I think it was either Men's Health or Harvard Review, I can't remember, did a study on men that was huge, like 8,000 men, asking them how many had a best friend. And it was very clear that all of it was low. Let me just tell you, all of it was low. Most men do not have a best friend. They have a buddy that they hang out with, that they grab a beer with, but they don't have somebody that they're like, hey, listen, buddy, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble, right? They don't have that. They have very superficial, right? They don't have a best friend. And what was more concerning to me was that the group that had most of the best friend, and again, it was like 28% of white men had a best friend. But as it went down for African-American men, it was less than 3. Wow. That they had a buddy, but they didn't have a best friend. And I was like, listen, we're designed, right? I don't care what your religious beliefs is. We're designed to be partners. We're designed for community. We're not designed as humans to be solo, right? A human will die if you leave it in isolation, right? It's why in prison they have isolation, because it's one of the worst things you can do to a human.
Right?
It's punishment, right? I mean, what didn't Tom Hanks created a movie about a soccer ball out dying on an island, right? We need human interaction. And to understand fundamentally that we're not learning how to connect and belong in friendships, then we wonder why our intimate relationships are so messed up. Well, if your man, so if your choice is to have a man as a partner, and that man has not had deep and meaningful friendships, and then you come along and you expect him to, he's looking at you like, I don't do that. I don't even know how to do that. Right. And so it's not that they don't want to, they have not been conditioned to, they haven't learned the life skills to. So you're asking them to do something that either A, they've been hurt, or B, they don't know how. And so when I can reflect the behavior of what the ask is, and we're just going to make the assumption it's from the woman, and the receiving of the ask from the man, and put in the life skills, the behavior skills, so that they can ease into it, because they both have to come together on earning trust, right? There's an earned trust if I'm trying to reach to you, the giving, and there's an earned trust from you if you're going to receive what it is that I'm giving. But if I don't understand how you trust, right? Trust is earned and earned repeatedly. But if I don't know what it is that you touch in order for you to feel like you're safe and secure, that you can trust me, I'm guessing. And so we've got way too much guessing inside of our relationships, right? Friendships and intimate relationships. And then we wonder why they end, because people only know, well, we must break up, right? I don't know. We don't agree. So we might as well just break up. And I'm like, well, breaking up should be the last resort, not the first resort, the last resort. What have you done to try to repair the relationship? And most people have tried nothing. They're like, well, we just argue, we don't get along. Now we're roommates, and now the relationship's over. And I'm like, but you have this time invested, but you haven't invested in any life skills into salvaging the relationship. So what do people do? They break up, then they get into the next relationship. They go past the honeymoon stage, and then they break up all over again. And it's always the same reason, right? The reason. All right. So if you're a male that's not comfortable with having deep and meaningful relationships, you're going to keep hopping relationships to relationship until you get to the point where somebody asks for more depth and meaning. That's going to freak you out. You're going to break up. You're going to go to the next relationship, be really happy about the honeymoon stage. Then that person's going to want something more deep and meaningful. Then you're going to break up, right? It's a pattern. And so you have to not just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to say, what can I do to move through where the relationship has tension? Right. And so if the tension is I'm asking more than you can give, I need to understand, why am I asking for this depth? Right. And Why are you not able to give it? And what is the tool in the middle? So we both grow into becoming our best self for the third entity. Remember, you have to be you and I have to be I, and we both have to be committed to the third entity, which is the us. So it's not about me, it's about us. But most couples are living parallel lives, and I'm defending me and you're defending you until we hit a breaking point. Then we break up and we do it all over again.
What advice do you have for men that could help to close the gap, right? Because a lot of times we don't know how to effectively communicate our feelings, our emotions. What advice do you have for
men need men and women need men, women need women, right? And so if a man doesn't have healthy relationships with men, right? And I'm not talking about sexually, just men having healthy men relationships, it is not realistic for you to expect him to have a healthy relationship with you, because you're now having to translate, right? Because me being a woman, me identifying as a female, changes our relationship because you don't identify as a female, you identify as a male. And so that impacts, that variable impacts the relationship, not good or bad, but I have to understand you identify as a male. So if we're working on something together and I push against how you identify, we are going to have a problem. Just like if you push against me on how I identify, we are going to have a problem. So you have to first practice, right, to as close as you can, which is usually another man, right, to have a relationship, to build a little bit of depth, to say something like, you know, I know we always have beers together or whatever, but I'm just curious, man, how you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing? Some men will be like, fine, I'm just fine. All right, not available. No problem. Some people are emotionally not available.
Right.
Other men are going to go, wow, I didn't expect you to ask me that. Or what are you at? Like you're going to first be met with the defense. Like, what are you asking me? But even in the question to the question is the opening that they're available. They're available. And that's just one thing. And you that, and then you get a little bit more and a little bit, and you build the substance into the relationship. The more men learn to bond with men, the greater the access women have to men.
Wow. Wow. You know, I immediately think of, we're individuals first. We have to lead ourselves first before we lead others.
Yes.
And as you know, this is leadership on demand. I lead leaders and I help leaders. But I think, you know, as individuals, we have to be able to help ourselves first, right?
And that's self-love, right? That's
absolutely
right. To be able to, you know, and I do that in my leadership training, right? I'm like, tell me what you love about your leadership ability. What do you love? What do you do better than anybody else as a leader? Like, so for my answer is, I am a master at leading from the back. I can give you a whole bunch of other people that are better leading from the front, but I'm very good at leading from the back, right? And I like that about myself. Most leaders, most individuals don't have those conversations to be able to express what they're proud of in themselves, right? Because people say, well, that's egotistical. No, it's not. I'm sharing for you something that I have a genius at, that I enjoy, that I'm proud of, that I have invested time into that skill. And if I can share with you what I enjoy about myself, it now opens up room for me to lean into my vulnerability to share with you where I'm working, right? So if I like the fact that I can lead from the back, then I can lean in and say, in one of the areas that I'm really trying to work on that I'm not good at is systematizing. Now I'm in a conversation, and anybody who's in that meeting knows where I'm good and knows where my area of focus is. So I've just told you a whole lot about me in 30 seconds. but we don't have the communication starters in leadership to lean in to self-identify who we are. And if we don't do it as a leader, then that means I don't do it for the people who work with me, because I don't know me and I'm not asking them. And we've built our companies with such a tactical approach, thinking that tactics create growth. No, they don't. Not ever. A company doesn't grow based on tactics. They grow on the people's ability to perform as a unit. So I always say, are you building a team of champions or a championship team? That's a different leadership style.
Absolutely. Wow. And most of us are focused on the championship team.
You would hope.
Well,
But then you go in,
well,
and the company tells you about their superstar salesperson.
right.
Okay. So you got a champion, right? So now you're attracting champions, not a championship team.
Team of champions.
Right.
Yeah. We're building teams of champions.
You want to take B players, people that individually are a B player, right? That was like the Red Sox, right? Everybody was kind of average, and together they won the World Series. They weren't supposed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a combination, right, of individuals who knew they were good, but not great. But they knew that they were at a point in time that greatness was created on the conformity of the team. Right. And so if you like sports, you see this all the time, right? You see this all the time where somebody who isn't supposed to, technically doesn't have the height, the weight, the this, that. And why do they overachieve? It's the team.
Yeah.
It's the team. You know, Michael Jordan had said that right in his interview. He said if he didn't have his counterpart, he never would have been Michael Jordan. It was in the camaraderie between the two. And I say the same thing. If you want to grow your company, look at the number 2 guy. Who as ever is in the number 2 position is going to dictate the elevation of your company. It's not the CEO. It's who's around the CEO.
Since Amilya Antonetti, Designing Genius is the book. DesigningGenius.com is the website, and you are the brilliance. You know, one question in closing, because I so appreciate you on so many levels. They say knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. Do you agree? Why or why not?
So I think what the greatest power is the ability to transfer knowledge, right? Me having the knowledge is cute, but if I can transfer my knowledge to you, I've now had impact, right? So I think it's the ability to transfer the knowledge. I think it's the ability to understand and take responsibility for your impact. Those things I think are far more powerful when you take a look at, if you were going to grade leaders, right? I think the leaders that have more self-awareness, leaders that are committed to the transfer of knowledge, leaders that take full responsibility of their impact, both good, bad, and not so, you know, that kind of whatever. I think that's what really creates the legacy of somebody that you will remember.
We will remember you with no problem at all, my friend. Amilya, I'm so honored.
Oh, you are one of my favorite. I get so excited every time we share the stage together. I love it. I consider it a blessing.
You have the Design Genius group that's doing some major things. I want to get plugged in. We're trying to start 50 leadership chapters inside and outside of the U.S. The summit this past weekend, thank you for popping in. It was amazing. The folks were engaged. And for me, Amilya, it was truly about trying to pour into people who are trying to level up. Right.
And so what we did is, we're the tools. Our commitment at Designing Genius is to create the system and the tools so that coaches and mentors can be more impactful. right? We're not a coaching company. We're never going to be a coaching company. I am not the coach. That's not who I am. But there are lots of individuals that are coaches and are mentors and are trainers, teachers and professors. What they need is the people tools to do what they do more impactful. So if you're a coach and now I hand you somebody's designing genius, right, overview, it shows you exactly where the root is of what they're struggling with. So now you can actually coach them through the behavior that's there. Instead of guessing and poking around, hoping to figure it out, right? The tool allows you to see this is where the struggle is and this is where it's rooted. And then we have 1,008 games for you to play as a coach for them to come into awareness. That's the struggle. So we are the support system for coaches, because if businesses come back without people tools, our businesses are going to fail.
Totally agree. No, I totally agree. It is about people. People are more important than any other asset in our businesses, right?
We say that people are our most important asset. And then when I say how much time, money, and resources have you invested into the people that are making your top line?
Yeah.
And the reality is they don't. Human resources is compliance. Human resources is anti-lawsuit. Human resources don't have people tools.
Right.
Right. And so
development tools, we need training tools. Yeah.
That's right. And so in order to continually to develop the internal nucleus of the people operating system, we provide the training, the tools, the systems, and the products to continually to develop them. And then, so somebody who isn't in a company and they just want to do it themselves, we have a B2C course so that they can do it themselves, right? Because the more somebody understands themselves, the more they can align themselves with the right company, right? And so that's what we're working with a ton of therapists, a ton of coaches, a ton of mentors, a ton of training companies, and providing them the people tools.
Amilya Antonetti, designing genius.
Yes.
This has been a pure pleasure.
Thank you.
Pure pleasure. I'm looking forward to leaning into the tools and us catching back up soon, and possibly having you, well, not even possibly, having you in the room for the Leadership on Demand at any time. See you soon, my friend. And thank you so much.
Anytime. The answer for you is always yes.
Oh my. You're amazing. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.